Sisyphus, Sisyphus, I'll help you if I can. Put my shoulder to the boulder, but it will roll down again. And this is a great blue boulder with millions of souls upon her. But if this is the way we roll her, then it will all soon be over. But we're burning up, drowned. We're drying out, down. We're going down into the toxic ground.
Welcome to Yelling at a Concrete Podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very happy to be here.
I'm terrible introducing people, so I'm going to let you introduce yourselves.
Well, we are Currer Bell. We're sisters. We're a folk duo. I'm called Faron.
I'm called Merle.
Yeah, that's it.
Pretty much.
Pretty much it. As we said, you're down in Somerset. Are you originally from Somerset?
Yeah, we are born and bred.
Never left.
No.
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 Don't really want to. It's nice. It's we've got a really nice sort of arty local town called Frome.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of stuff there, and it's just a nice supportive place to be. But it's nice and rural as well, because we're very into taking long rambles and pretending to be in a Bronte book.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed that based on the band name.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had to research it. I will admit, I'm not that into literature as many would be. Some would obviously automatically get it, but I had to look it up. It was like, this seems familiar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like
seems
that.
familiar. How long have you? So you're musicians, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled across you through Instagram, I think.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain it's through Instagram. Someone followed you and then shared your work, and the dominoes fall, as it were. How long have you been making music for?
We always pause on that question because it's hard to keep track.
Also, like, what can you class as music? Because Merle, I remember when she was like, as soon as she could make noise, it was coming out musically. Like, before she was really talking, she was gurgling tunes in her cot. Like, one of my earliest memories of Merle is just her lying in her cot doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star without words, just baby noises.
Yeah, and a rough melody.
Yeah.
So I think it's been always with us, really, from a young age. And we kind of incorporated it into our imaginary playground and our games that we would have. And then it just sort of grew from there, and we experimented with a lot of instruments and recorded stuff very badly on GarageBand in the early days.
Always the best place to start.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
But we wanted to ask you, like, how long have you been an artiste? Did it start when you were little? Did it, has it been a more recent decision?
I mean, so mine's been permanent since I was very young.
Yeah.
But it's drifted through growing up. Essentially, I started off drawing as a child, and that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to draw. I wanted to be a cartoonist, and that's basically everything I wanted to do. And then around the age of 13, I realized that nobody would pay me to do that. So I went very media for a while, and explored kind of photography and film, but from kind of like a financial point of view, and abandoned my artistic sensibilities. And then, I kind of just like gradually got dragged back into it, because you can never really escape it, I don't feel.
You can try. Like, I've tried to kind of do other things, trained to be an English language teacher. So I've tried to do that, but you can't like escape if you're an artist. You're kind of stuck there, aren't you? Unfortunately.
I feel like you have to be. I vividly remember, I think my GCSE art teacher had told me about people who'd exhibited the same kind of traits as I had, and said that they'd gone on to be like accountants and stuff like that, and that they hated their jobs.
Yeah.
And they hated all of that because they'd just given up any creative endeavor within their life.
Mm.
and that kind of made me sad. I was like,
Yeah,
I
it is
never
sad.
want to drop my creative side. Yeah.
No.
So you've been making music for a very long time then, presumably.
Mm.
But you're completely self-taught as well,
Yeah.
from what I read on your website.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had a few piano
Lessons
lessons
when I was
when you-
little.
Yeah, and I had a few violin lessons, but yeah, apart from that, it's just been experimenting and sort of messing around until we find something that works, really. And well, we only really started thinking of it as a profession quite recently,
Yeah,
2 or
about
3 years
3 years
ago.
And that's a whole minefield, isn't it? Like working out how to get your stuff out there and get people interested in it. And yeah, it's been a learning curve. That's what we've mainly kind of focused on during lockdown, because it gave us the time to go into that side of creativity, the business side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dreaded business.
I know. That's the other thing, like the strange thing about being an artist is if you do want to do it, full time, you also then you actually do have to become a business person as well.
Yeah, it's almost like having
A split personality.
but also it's expected of you to have several different qualifications and be doing different jobs that would, well, I guess if you were with a record label, you would have a massive team behind you doing all of those different sections like social media, marketing, promotion. So yeah, it was a bit overwhelming at first.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun.
Fun in kind of like a shell shocky kind of way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
You come out the other side and you're like, well, no, it was fun, right? But,
yeah. It's just like I didn't realise at the time, but it was definitely fun for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I got a hard question for you then, because you mentioned literature, you mentioned your name is based off Bronte and all those kinds of things. So why music? Why not writing? Why not books?
Well, I mean, we both do quite a lot of sort of fiction writing anyway, and poetry, but it's always been more of a kind of hobby. I don't know why. It's just music is the thing.
I think it's a really powerful form of storytelling for me anyway, even more than just reading a book, because it's accompanied by this audio and this sound perception, and I think that helps communicate the stories and the tales and whatever you're trying to say in a much better way sometimes, or it's more immediate for me anyway. So maybe that's it.
Also, I think because we have quite a musical sort of family, and I guess where you get encouragement, you start to, you want to do that, where people are like, oh yeah, it's great, let's do some more of this all together. It's more encouraging. Because writing is a very solitary affair, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to write with somebody.
Yeah, practically impossible.
So I feel like that's a good art project there for somebody with like a typewriter where you can only control half of the typewriter or something like that.
It would be incredibly hard, wouldn't it?
There's a team building exercise somewhere in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you say you have a musical family.
Yeah.
So it's always been pushed, I guess.
Yeah, sort of. We're just encouraged and sort of fostered, and there's always been a love of that around. So we felt like it was
it was normal.
Yeah, it was normal.
Yeah.
It's only when you sort of hit your mid-teens and you're at that moment where people are like, so what are you going to do with your life? And you're like, I can't do music because that's impossible. So I'll do this, I'll try this. But yeah, I mean, for a whole childhood, it seemed like the most natural thing in the world.
I do agree as well, though. Like, I feel like there's certain ways of expressing yourself which do just come easier.
Yeah.
I'm one who I dive through different mediums all the time. That's essentially what I do. I can't stick to one thing. And sometimes it's just a case of figuring out which platform to put a message in.
Yeah.
And that can take so long of just like, oh, I've drawn it, but it doesn't work. So I'll paint it, but that doesn't work. I don't know what I'm going to do with it now. So I mean, I had a listen prior, obviously, to reaching out, and I had another listen today because I do. I research, shockingly, despite me looking like I live on the street. I do have access to things. I found it incredibly difficult to describe your sound.
Oh, well, that's good. That's nice.
That is reassuring because a lot of people are obsessed with comparing us to people.
Pigeonholing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had a chat about our genre the other day, didn't we? Because we call ourselves alt folk, but then we sort of, we're like, are we actually making alt folk? Like, we were just mixing something. We're like, this doesn't really sound like alt folk.
Yeah, because in our minds, because we've grown up listening to so much folk music, I guess we're rooted in that storytelling tradition. But then subconsciously or whatever, without us realizing, we've kind of brought it into contemporary and
weirdness,
mashed it up with loads of different flavors. I don't know why I'm going along a culinary metaphor, but whatever. So yes, tell us more about how you
can you give us a genre, please?
Yeah, tell us about our music.
So much pressure.
Because we don't know.
We don't understand.
So it reminded me of a few things, but nothing which I would put specifically in one genre, and that's what I liked about it. That's why when I stumbled across it, what I really got from it was it had the kind of like diegetic feeling that you get from cinema music, despite the fact that it's just a track. And it was just kind of that whole, there's a rhythm you get when you watch a film, and you get that atmospheric music of it kind of sits in the back of your head, and you don't know what it's doing to you because you're focused on the narrative.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked. It was when I listened to the tracks, it was like, well, yeah, I've got these lyrics and I'm focused on the lyrics because I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but everything else is just kind of rolling like a waterfall. It's just in the back of my head. But it also kind of reminded me of rock opera.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
just because it was so dramatic.
yes. So we do like our drama.
Yeah, we do. They're dramatic sometimes.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being dramatic on occasion.
Gotta be.
I mean, so in terms of kind of content, then, I mean, I've listened to your tracks, and I will put some music tidbits in the podcast because you're musicians, so that's what we should do.
Fantastic.
What do you write about for the people, if you had to tell them?
Well, it's very much narrative based. It's always stories. It's often characters. Sometimes they're lifted from classic books or poems. Sometimes they're completely made up. And often we get pretty big with the themes.
Yeah.
Even though they're kind of these quite focused stories about specific places or characters. We like to go big or go home.
Yes.
And obviously with our EP songs, we kind of found that they were about the apocalypse, or not necessarily the apocalypse, but the various kind of apocalypses, if that is the plural.
I think
that are going on.
Catastrophes of all different kinds, ranging from personal to global or environmental, and how we could explore that from our personal point of view. And it's
Do you find that you kind of attracted to those kinds of stories in things which you consume then as well?
Yeah.
And kind of books or films or whatever you get into.
Yeah.
Something about the tragedy.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why. I guess probably if you're raised on like folk music, it's always about sailors going and drowning and coal miners getting crushed and true loves being separated and wasting away, and
it's all quite tragic.
It's really tragic, and I think it's very cathartic, and it just helps you process your own like smaller disasters in life.
Yeah,
to have these kind of huge ones, not huge, but these big tragic narratives, kind of, they guide you through and they help you process, I think.
That's interesting. I don't know why, but I don't associate folk with big tragedy.
Really?
Ah.
I'm kind of curious. I can't figure out why. Like,
That's interesting. So what do you kind of think of it as like ye old drinking songs and stuff?
maybe I feel like I may insult people with this comment.
No, go ahead. There is that side of folk music. It's
Yeah,
this
for sure.
communal, the
Jolly.
people's
Yeah.
music.
Yeah, having
I think like hobbits, but
Right.
like
Yeah.
happy hobbits. Not
happy
like,
hobbits. No, you just got to think sad hobbits, and then you'll be there.
Yeah, like
dwarfs.
Frodo and Sam are like on Mount Doom, and you got to think that
Okay.
that kind of level.
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's that kind of like wandering hillbilly sound is what like instantly comes to mind when I think folk.
Yeah.
When I think alt folk, I think romance, and I think that
Yeah.
that gets like a huge play, and
Yeah.
I think like bands like Magic Numbers and stuff
Yeah.
kind of pop into my mind. But yeah, when I think folk, I don't tend to think of dramatics. But I guess there is that history because it's narrative storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Through music.
Mhm.
I feel like I've just had my mind slightly blown. Or I've underestimated a whole genre for most of my life.
Yeah, you're gonna have some fun now. You're gonna go and look at all of the tragic ballads and stuff. Yeah.
Then if you're not classifying yourself as folk further down the line.
Yeah.
I mean, so one thing which did kind of occur to me was when I was listening to it is it's such a deep sound in the songs you put out. What do you actually play? Is that a big question?
No, I mean, obviously the kernel of the sound is piano and guitar and violin, which Mel plays, and I also play harmonium. And then we just kind of go into Logic, which is what we use for our recording, and explore all of the noises that we can get. And just go let our imaginations go a bit wild to try and build like a world around the story. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So it's a lot more organic than structure of we're going to put this here and we're going to put this here.
Yeah.
Try and build a line. It's kind of nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've got quite a strange picture of music making in my head.
But what's your picture?
I think it's probably stems from me being in bad bands at a very young age.
What do you play?
Play is a very broad term here. I own a guitar and I own a bass and I own a clarinet, and I can play a clarinet, or I could when I was very young. But I can make them make sounds.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Whether that's playing them or abusing them is a completely different conversation. But no, I started off in a metal band. Because obviously, and then graduated into a ska band because my friends had moved on from metal, but I hadn't. But I still wanted to be in a band. And then we gradually drifted into kind of industrial stuff.
Wow.
But we never performed live.
Oh,
Which I feel
that's
like,
a shame.
yeah.
You could have missed out on a whole other parallel life as a rock star.
I do, but I also feel like I dodged a bullet. That there's at the time of like camera phones was when I was getting started, and there's probably some tragic footage of what could have been around that time.
Oh.
So yeah, no, I think when I think songwriting and I think music, I tend to, especially with bands, I think of it as more of a kind of structure of like, we've got this many people in the band, we need to get this down, like this part of the track down, this part of the track down, build and build and build. And when I've interviewed other musicians, most of them have had on the show have been solo artists or rap musicians.
Right.
Which is all very different to essentially people who are just trying to build something atmospheric.
Yeah. I mean, I think we probably write the songs that quite like solo artists, don't we? Because we don't tend to write actually in a room together.
No.
We tend to write separately and then come together and be like, well, how are we going to make this into, our little world? How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
And then we proceed to sort of shout at each other, cry, spend all day cooped up in a little room with a mic, struggling along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we usually get there.
eventually.
Usually.
Usually, yeah. There's plenty that we won't mention. We won't mention those failures. Yeah, but I suppose it's a bit like you with, you know, like the production side of music, choosing how you're going to make that world is probably a bit like you having some kind of thought or spark or germ of an idea, and then working out like which medium you're going to use to convey it.
I like that term, germ of an idea.
Yeah.
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 Creative ideas is an infection, sounds like.
Well, it kind of is. It goes back to that idea of as an artist not being able to escape. You have been infected, and you know it's fatal.
You will die of this.
Wow. So how long have you guys got left before it takes you? Just like...
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. That's. I mean, again, it's dramatic. It's exactly as said on the tin, sort of thing. I mean, I guess in that sense of like being artists and considering yourself an artist, I feel like there's a drama which goes with it by accepting that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can have artists who are reserved completely, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I think artists are often quite shy and socially inept.
Yeah,
certainly we are.
But then we're not really here to be social and you know, good with communication in its conventional sense. If we were, then we wouldn't bother communicating through our art, would we?
Yeah.
If we could just say it simply.
Yeah, and just like feel understood and understand other people in a normal manner, you wouldn't bother with the art, would you?
I don't know. Would you?
I don't think you would. Well, you might have like a nice hobby where you paint flowers or you play the odd hymn. I don't know.
You're just describing like a whole generation of crafters and parents.
Oh.
Like I've been, I'm emotionally well adjusted. And what do? Well, I paint flowers.
No, I mean I love
Flowers,
crafts as well. I do. I love.
Yeah, she's known to been known to do knitting.
I love knitting. I love knitting. I don't consider it an art form, but I love knitting. But yeah, I think there's a difference between craft and art, and it's key. And I think crafts people perhaps are more well adjusted. Possibly. Maybe I might be making a hideous generalization, but I think it's possible.
Finding a whole folk community of wicker makers and bead artists, just like no making friends. No, I agree. I think that, I think art is a reaction in a way. It's us trying to communicate in the best way we can when we've had whatever we had in our younger lives, where we've just decided at some point, no, I don't really like communicating that part of myself. I'll find a different way of doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And
then spending the next 30 years trying to explain your own artwork because,
it kind of backfires. I didn't think this was going to happen.
I think I recorded a podcast recently which was discussing the whole idea of artists create artwork to put something between themselves and other people. So you don't necessarily think of it as expunging something to explain it. You're just expunging it, and then it's easier to explain once you have the finished piece, because you can go, this is my piece, you don't have to pay attention to me, this is just the piece I made.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm getting back to the point, if we had a point. I don't tend to have a point. But no, we kind of talked on topics and ideas. Obviously you guys pick topic because you're the guests, and you make music which is based on tragedy and story and romance and all these kinds of things. And I guess the question is a larger question of why we react to those things with art. rather, especially when it's something which isn't necessarily personal or something which is easy to explain or that kind of thing. Why would you go out of your way to make reactionary art, as it were? I don't know why I did a hand wave there.
That's a big question.
That is.
Well, I guess speak of your latest EP. What's the main theme to your latest EP? I think you already mentioned.
Well, the main theme would be environmental breakdown, right?
Yeah, I would say so. But then also the personal reaction to environmental breakdown and how that can be a breakdown within yourself as an individual.
You feel powerless.
Powerless in the face of this massive monster of nature, but also the massive monster of mankind as this whole, and how we're getting a bit lost.
Yeah, we're not really answering the question.
No, we're going off piece.
Going off on a different thing.
That's why we do an hour.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, yeah, it's kind of, you get moments where you're like, why am I bothering to make art about this when I could be doing something actually useful? But I suppose each person can only kind of do what they can do.
But it's also what you define as useful. And I think, I think art can be incredibly useful.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think, you know, lots of people have been saved by art. I think probably I have at times.
Yeah.
You know, not by making art, but just by actually consuming other people's. Yeah. So maybe it's not all pointless and in vain. Hopefully.
No.
I mean, I don't mean to make you question why you make things, and
we
get
do
off the podcast and just tell us like,
I get off the podcast, and that was the last time Currer Bell ever made any music.
I mean, it'd be a hell of a podcast. The podcast which broke up a band.
Yeah.
A full-on claim to fame. I know. I think. Yeah. I think I've said it before. Like I've got a strange view, I guess, to some artists that I don't see art as, or I wouldn't describe art as an essential part of life. In the sense of, you can exist without art. You know, you can eat, sleep, do whatever, and you don't necessarily need art. It's just if you want to live in any capacity where you're stable, I think you have to have some creative outlet to explore. But it's interesting that you kind of, like you say, the idea of powerlessness, and especially in the face of something like climate change. I mean, I don't actually know how old either of you are.
Mel's 19 and I'm 23.
Okay, so you're still quite young, comparatively.
Quite young, although I'm starting to feel quite old, to be honest. Yeah.
It's all downhill past 18.
Yeah, literally, I just started to notice like wrinkles coming, and I was like, Mom, what do I use? Tell me about your creams. Like having always just like roll my eyes, and she tries to talk to me about that sort of thing. I'm like, Mom, tell me your secrets.
Yeah.
I think I do think it's kind of your generation who really taken hold of the concept of climate change as an artistic medium. Well, not medium, but artistic idea to kind of get into. Because I mean, my whole generation, we're very inwardly focused. We're a generation of narcissists, and we know that. You know, that's why we got addicted to MySpace. Yeah, you know, they brought us products to feed our narcissism because we came after Gen X and everyone like that. So we came along as millennials and went, no, we just want to look at ourselves. Whereas you guys just came in and went, no, actually, guys, you noticed that outside everything's fucked.
Yeah,
we're kind of coming around to that. You know, we're caring, but I don't see many people my age making environmental art. I guess would be the thing. It's usually older or younger, as it were.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I guess that makes me wonder what other art you've made. Have you ever released it out, or has it just been a very personal exploration? Like, or did you jump straight for big picture tragedy?
Well, it's always been storytelling. And actually, now I think about it, it has been sort of quite big picture stuff ever since we were little, hasn't it, that we've written about?
Yeah, I think so.
I think, ironically, now that we've done the EP, the stuff that we're writing is coming a bit more, a bit closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of themes of it. But I think when you are quite young, when you're kind of a kid and a young teenager, you're quite connected to the whole idea of this fabric of reality, the fabric of the world, and like being part of it and being connected to it. So you're kind of naturally drawn to bigger topics and themes. I think as you start to get old and you start to sort of see the dog eat dog kind of society that we live in, maybe you start to get a bit more personally and inwardly focused with the art. I think when we wrote those songs, they were mainly mid-teens kind of songs. We were still in that phase of very much big picture, very philosophical
crisis.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting though. I think as well, because listening to the songs, I mean, you have a very softly spoken style.
Yeah,
is a way I'd word it. When I think of kind of youth, I don't tend to think of softly spoken. So
what do you think, shouty?
Yeah, I think shouty. I think, not necessarily struggling to get the words out, but wanting to be heard, so being louder than whatever came before you. And to approach it in a way which is actually more considered and more reserved is nice. It's a good balance to strike. And then you throw in sounds which do all the shouting for you, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess.
I haven't really thought of it like that, but I guess so. I wish I could sing like in that more kind of powerhouse way. I just can't.
Well, I think it's what is powerhouse singing for you is not going to be what it is for someone else. You've got to work within the limitations of your own voice.
Yeah, but I would like to be able to sing in a kind of like Eastern European, really strong, powerful, beautiful kind of way, like a Bulgarian folk singer or something, because I love all of that, and it feels really ancient and like it just comes straight up out of the earth and through them, and I love that. But it's not me. I have the wispy voice, and you have quite an airy voice as well. You've got to work with what you've got.
I'll borrow some people and just write what they have. I mean, I guess that's probably a good question. This is a very distinct style. I think it's fair to say. Is this something which you naturally like just started making, or was this kind of secretly got a punk band in your back pocket which you've just not told anyone about?
No, this is just, we can't really do, well, it's a really big aeroplane. Can't really do anything else. This is just, wow, I'm gonna wait.
This is the end of the world.
Like shaking.
It's the apocalypse
You
now.
live on an airbase?
We're in our shed, so everything is really noisy.
Yeah.
When it rains in here, it's terrible. It's catastrophic. Anyway,
but yes, our sound. I think honestly, it was from listening to an amalgamation of other artists who weren't just folk. Like we're massive fans of Tori Amos and PJ Harvey, and I think they have this really strong kind of it's elements of grunge, but also very feminine singing.
Yeah, and that's true. It's that quite sort of soft singing, but then the words and the songs and the message are really hard hitting.
Yeah.
There's a balance between something which is, I mean, for lack of a better term, aesthetically good to listen to. Aesthetically doesn't work for sound, does it?
Well, I know what you're driving at. Yeah, I don't know what the equivalent is.
sonically
Pleasing.
Sonically pleasing. I mean, I like it. We're coining new terms every. I love it. Title of this podcast is now sonically pleasing. With
Yeah.
I guess what I get at is that if I compared it to a visual medium, I'd compare it to romantic paintings and of poverty or something like that. Something where they've taken it and said, "This is something awful. I want to show the world," but it's done in such a style which you look at it, it's still very nice to look at.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess do you think of them as kind of, I guess, more traditional in that sense, or do you see this as breaking new ground?
No.
If that's not a hard question.
No, I think I have this constant anxiety that, you know, everything of making has already been made in a way, and that's always a battle for me. Like, is there any point in putting things out because it's surely already been done, and all of that stuff. So no, I don't think it's particularly pioneering our music.
Yeah, I try not to think about any of that too much, because I think I think if you overanalyze what you're doing, I mean, maybe you find this too, you sort of clam up and you just can't do it. Do you get that?
Kind of. Mine's more kind of like a faucet which I left running, and then every so often I realize that I need some of it, but otherwise I'm just drowning. So it varies, but no, I completely understand what you mean. Yeah, it's one of those. I think I've had the conversation with many an artist who, if you start to look at it too closely, you forget why you were doing it in the first place.
Yeah,
you know, and it is that view of everything has been done. It's every conversation has ever been had, and there's no real way of avoiding that. So you kind of have to just get into that thought process of, why am I still doing this? Is it because, as we were saying, you know, art's a reaction to things. It's us trying to deal with the world around us.
Yeah.
So do you find it helps deal with the world around you? Or are you still impending doom as
Well,
the planes fly over? And
I mean, I think it helps. Yeah, it does help you personally to get on with normal life without having a nervous breakdown. But whether it helps prevent anything horrific from happening, I don't think that's the case, really, is it?
No.
But what can you do?
that could be the other title for the podcast. But what can you do?
What can you do?
Well done, then. But what can you do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's the, as I was saying earlier, kind of the comparison I made to it was that whole idea of kind of cinema soundtrack, and that idea of when we witness these films with strong narrative stories and you know, messages, as it were, that they suit that grandeur of being involved in that. But when you watch films, you watch them to maybe feel a little bit more comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, especially, I mean, I'm curious if you guys are into kind of dystopia or what you do watch.
We're not actually into any of that sort of dystopian or futuristic stuff, really, are we?
No, not really in cinematic form.
No, we're much more likely to be watching a Jane Austen adaptation for the 50th time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose maybe in books a bit more. Like, one of the songs from our EP is inspired by this 1930s sort of tragicomic dystopian book called The Hopkins Manuscript, which is about the moon crashing into the earth. But it's kind of about how humanity copes in the face of like an impending disaster. So it feels really relevant even now still. So we love that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think especially with the Hopkins manuscript, the way it was told from a very personal perspective, you know, it's first person and it's from the point of view of this retired school teacher, and he's quite a sort of dull, sedate character, but then he turns into this amazing hero and this very strong person because of this impending doom, and that he has this view from his sitting room window every night of the moon, and every cycle of the moon he can see it getting bigger and bigger and like coming towards him. So yeah, that was just very powerful reading that, and it definitely shaped the EP thematically.
I feel like that's a residual message in quite a lot of bigger art, of just how the individual connects to kind of like a global issue.
Yeah.
And it's very much, you do get some work which is very inwardly focused, but the way we recognize larger issues is by trying to make them more humble, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Otherwise you can't grasp them.
No.
Yeah.
So it's like an attempt to comprehend.
Mm.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So in terms of EP and everything, what else have you got going on at the minute?
Well, we are now launched into making an album.
Oh, damn.
Didn't really pause. And we're also doing a sort of local project where we're writing music for a sonic, what would you call it? A sonic walk, sort of around our local town, Frome, and it's full of the kind of history and mystery of our town. So we're kind of digging up old folk songs from around the area and reviving them and doing that alongside. So yeah.
You had a lot of your work digs into history.
Yeah, it's sort of an obsession. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consistently looking back. And so there's something ahead of you which you don't want to talk about.
Well,
yeah.
I think the future is pretty scary and uncertain, especially at the moment, and especially I think for young people like us. I suppose looking back, it gives you some ideas about kind of how to live and how to navigate disasters.
Yeah, or how not to navigate.
Or how not to. I was thinking, yeah, but actually the past's pretty kind of shit most of the time. People are doing horrible things. How am I saying that? How to live? Is that really what it is? No, yeah, how not to live as well.
Yeah.
It always concerns me when you meet people who yearn for a specific time period.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, or they try to live it in. They're like, yeah, no, I'm living like I'm in the 1940s. I'm like,
yeah, especially
why?
like I don't want to point fingers specifically, but women who like doing all the 1950s dresses and stuff, and yeah, I find that quite disturbing because it wasn't really a great time.
Yeah. No, I can completely understand people getting into aesthetics.
Yeah.
But when it goes past that and they start getting into, I know it was simpler and we did all this, and say, yeah, it was simpler, but there's reasons why it was simpler, which weren't great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite lucky. I'm white and male. I can basically go back to any time period. Like a free pass. Just
No, but I mean, God, yeah. It's funny the way we perceive the past, because we can draw comfort from it, but I think that comfort actually comes from more of a fantasy than a reality, because for most people the past was probably really horrible.
Yeah.
I do think it's quite hard to represent the past in any way which isn't dramatic, though.
Yeah.
I think adding a reality to past, even if you try to do it with some kind of balanced notion, it still somehow comes off more dramatic than it ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting the way we kind of impose narratives on the past, because obviously nothing actually unfolds as a narrative, but as humans we kind of need those shapes to be able to make sense of anything.
Yes.
I think that's partly why people can draw comfort from the past, because you can put a story arc on it. You can make it into a containable thing that you can understand. You can make it into a shape, and you just can't do that with the future.
No.
We can try.
You can project.
You
can write your sci-fi novel, but it probably won't happen.
Yeah.
I feel like most sci-fi novels we wouldn't want to happen.
No.
Something bad always happens.
No. Where are the sci-fi novels where everything works out just swimmingly?
Nobody wants to read them.
Yeah, what would there wouldn't really be a fun factor for a utopian sci-fi novel, would there? Because it's not. I guess we crave the excitement of disaster and catastrophe.
Those action sequences. Like, where would the tension come from? Everyone would just be doing yoga together. It would be very.
I mean, that sounds like a disaster to me. Yeah, barely touch. I mean, I guess that raises a good question, kind of, to for you guys. Is obviously your work has this strong narrative structure. It has an input from tragedy and everything around that. Do you think you could make work which wasn't based on that, which was based purely in joy and all the things which are not?
I have asked myself this question.
Me too.
Have we written any happy songs? No.
No, because that's
I was just thinking, I was like, oh yeah, there was that one, and I was like, oh no, there was that line. Right, it wasn't happy.
Yeah, I just feel like that's besides the point for my personal the personal reason why I make songs. It's almost as a cleansing, I suppose, of things that I don't want on my chest anymore, and I can't communicate them in any other way to anyone else. They're just too tightly bound or too close to me, or even like not clear in my own head.
You can't actually verbalize them.
Yeah, so then suddenly when they're out there in music form, it seems easier. And so they're often not happy.
Yeah, because happiness is much easier to express in a kind of normal form, like, dance, chat to a person you like, laugh. Whereas if you're really like gnarled up inside on some dreadful existential issue, you're gonna have to put it into some art. Yeah,
that's incredibly interesting. That you not, I mean, just the general idea that you think happiness is easier to express.
Do you not agree?
I don't know. I don't. I mean, I'm very broken as it is, but I think I find it much easier to express things which upset me than things which make me happy, because I keep things which make me happy very internal.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And that's why when I make artwork, it turns out all messy and dark, because I find this. I know it's easy. This is my way of communicating these things. I found a way of communicating these things, but I never found a way to kind of communicate just being happy. Whereas I can communicate content quite happily. That's an oxymoron in itself. I communicate contentment, but joy is something which I've never been able to make work about.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can't make art out of joy, I don't think, but I think it comes out in all the other ways.
Yeah, but I think joy, strangely, is a sort of byproduct sometimes of expressing
your sorrow.
Of expressing your sorrow.
Like, you write a really sad song and you're like yay, because it's a release. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, that's true. Actually, I didn't really. Yeah.
Do you get that when you perform it then, like each time, or does it become more routine?
Well, it depends on the song, really. I think you really find out like how much you really meant what you were saying when you're performing it for like the 50th time. You're like, why did I write this? What does this mean? Is it awful? I hate it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there are others where each time you go back into the place you were when you first made it, and it's a real experience that carries on. And yeah, sometimes there's a sense of sort of joy it sounds horrible, but if you look out at the audience and you see people sort of visibly moved, That's really. Yeah. Do you get happy when you finish an artwork?
This is strange having questions asked to me. I'm not prepared for it, but it's fine. No, so I have a kind of a sense of artwork's never finished. In my view, even when I release it to the public, it's never really finished. So it's never a concept of if I'm happy that it's done. I enjoy the catharsis of the creation, and that's what gives me happiness at the time. But it's because I'm finding a way to communicate and that kind of thing. And then when I put it out into the world, it's less, I'm happy it's done and I'm proud of it. It's more, I'm going to throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then we'll deal with that like afterwards, because I don't think I can hold on to it to that point. So it's less pride and more self-punishment. Just like, I made this thing, you spent days and weeks on it, let's push it out and see what happens. Because you've got to have that ego at some point of just like, I made this, so someone needs to look at it, right?
It's really hard, that decision, making that choice, I think, because it feels horrible putting your stuff out and you feel like, why am I doing this? This is, no one is gonna want to see this. Do I even want to share this? Do I? This horrible dark part of myself. But it's interesting that you actually have to kind of foster an ego as an artist. Like, if you want to put it out, you have to be like, come on, ego, grow.
I think it's less fostering ego, more convincing myself to let my ego out.
Oh, really? Oh, that's an interesting. Yeah, maybe that is it.
It's like, I spend a lot of time suppressing an ego, hence why I insult myself so often. But it's kind of more that sense of just going to myself, actually, no, it is there. It is okay to allow an ego once in a while, but because of who I am and how I've grown up, my brain's gone, nah, that's a bad thing to be, that's awkward. But I think that's interesting. It's interesting that you get the audience sensibility as well, and being able to see an audience react to your work and experience that tragedy all over again.
It's terrible, but like, I think if you write our sort of music, your kind of number one compliment is if someone cries, which is really mean. But if ever we get a report of someone crying,
it's satisfying, but at the same time you feel slightly bad for them, but then you shouldn't, because I guess they were obviously moved and it helped them.
Maybe in the same way that when you wrote it, you got that catharsis and then you got the joy. Like, I love being moved to tears by a piece of music. I love it. And I have these like specific pieces that I know will always move me to tears, and I don't listen to them too much. I only listen to them when I feel like I'm going to implode or explode or otherwise just deteriorate if I don't have some sort of proper processing things. And I go and lie down, put headphones on and just weep, it's really good for you, I think.
It's a strange relationship artists have to have with an audience in a way. And I think that's something which I always have to remind myself and others from. I feel like if you are being an artist or you want to be an artist, if you don't have an audience, you're not an artist. Because if you only keep it for yourself, there's no reaction to it. It's literally just you processing whatever you're doing. You're expressing, but you're not committing to what art should be, in a way. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
You've got to have that back and forth in one way or another. And you're essentially, like you say, with making someone essentially cry from whatever you made, you're giving them that gift of being able to unlock something and go, you didn't feel this before, and now you feel this. So this is a way for you to feel it, and that becomes for them, like yourself, a song which they can pour and then work through whatever they were working through. That's nice. I like that. I like a little thing. But I've not quite gotten used to an audience yet. But
it's a weird one, especially during COVID. It's been very weird because you haven't been able to see or be in the actual same physical space. So that's been different.
Have you done many performances through COVID then?
Not really. I mean, we did a few last summer, didn't we? In that little window of freedom, and we did one live stream. But obviously, that's a completely different kettle of fish. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to it in a way. Even though I always get absolutely terrified. Both get terrified, don't you?
Yeah.
Never get over that.
I mean, a lot of the time I don't have that. I don't have the time to be terrified during a performance because our setup is quite complicated.
Yeah, especially Mel. Mel has really shot herself in the foot by deciding she wanted to be a sort of multi-instrumentalist.
I didn't decide.
You did decide.
Well, it's just
was it an accident because someone accidentally wrote in a brochure when we were going to perform that we were multi-instrumentalists, and we were like, but we're not. But we must now become multi-instrumentalists.
Yeah, before I'd just seen it as us sort of dabbling in a few different instruments. I hadn't seen it as this multi-instrumental seriousness.
Yeah, but then we really had to sort of up our live game, and it can be a bit silly.
Yeah, we got like a looper and lots of pedals.
And Mel, how many guitars do you have last time? We did like 4.
4 guitars.
Swapping around with.
And a violin.
Violin, pedals.
And you had piano, harmonium, and a bass drum.
Oh yeah.
That you were operating with your foot.
Sometimes I try a bit of penny whistle, which is usually disastrous. But never mind. You can but try.
I mean, it sounds multi-instrumentalist to me.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's interesting that you kind of, I mean, yeah, I guess the anxiety of performing and all that kind of thing never really goes away, especially when it's something which is quite personal to put out there. But I guess, yeah, you just have to throw yourself out.
Yeah. It's strange because every time you do a show, you're sort of like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I hate this. I want to go home. I never want to see anyone. I don't want to go. Why did I open the front door? I just want to go home.
But then afterwards
you feel great.
Yeah.
It's that horrible.
Do you get that on stage then, or is it just the before?
It's just walking from wherever you are backstage onto the stage, getting to your instrument. Then you're okay.
I mean, unless on rare occurrences where like
something goes wrong,
the performance is really shit, then for the whole time you'll be thinking, I need to go. I need to escape and disappear.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh yeah, I think from speaking to quite a few people who do poetry, and they say that there's like it's kind of like the quiet in the middle of a tornado, where you just like, walking into it's hell, but as soon as you're in the middle, you're fine. You can get over it, and then coming out of it's hell.
Yeah. I can't imagine someone who does spoken word performances, or also I think being a comedian must be the most terrifying thing in the world.
Well, there's a lot of pressure to make people laugh. That's a responsibility, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, with music, once you're in a song, it's kind of fine. Like you're not really there anymore. It's just the song. It's just the story. But I guess if you're a comedian, or sometimes if you're a poet, it's much more vulnerable. You don't have anything to hide behind. It's just you there doing your thing. I think that's terrifying.
So you can just hide behind your instruments and sounds.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to get a massive double bass so I can actually
physically
properly disappear behind it.
Yeah.
Is this why you're multi-instruments? Because you just needed more barriers between you and the audience?
Maybe that's the secret of it, yeah.
Gradually building a castle of folk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. I completely agree. Like, performing is probably the most vulnerable thing you could ever do. It's not I've done one live performance in my life.
Right.
And that was a live version of the podcast.
Oh, cool.
And essentially, because I do obviously ones with guests, and I do the solo ones where it's just me rambling for half an hour. And that was what I did live. And I came out the other end of it, and I vividly remember saying to a friend, I have no idea what I said.
Yeah.
Spoke for 40 minutes and I do not know what I've said. It was unscripted anyway, but at the same time, yeah, it's just like, it's like a weird space you get into where you're like, that's not me now. That's not,
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, like, kind of in a way, I didn't know what to expect with yourselves because your work is so dramatic and it's so softly spoken, and it's like there's every chance that you would be exactly as your music is.
Dramatic and softly spoken.
Yes.
Well, are you?
The opposite.
Are you surprised? So, are you surprised by our demeanors?
No, I think this is the thing. Like, I think it's as well. It becomes this thing of when you meet artists and you remember they're people. You know, they're not necessarily what they put on stage. They're not necessarily the work they put out all the time. You know. One could think from listening to your thing that you'd just be, romantic costumes walking across Mars, and that would be
nice. I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
But no, we have to do normal things.
But it's that process, isn't it? It's that process of detaching yourself from your art as well as using it as a tool to just kind of work through whatever you're going through. But it's been interesting overall to find out about it. As I say, you've got your EP coming out.
Yeah, it's fully out and about.
Yeah.
Where can people get hold of your EP?
They can get hold of it on all of the normal places, Spotify, etc. Also on Bandcamp.
It's about some big themes and with some wonderful sounds.
Yeah.
It's been lovely to talk to you today.
You too.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, it's been really nice.
Welcome. Yeah, as I say, I only tend to reach out when I find something which just interests me. I don't pander to an audience. I just find something which would interest me. When I heard your work, I was like, yeah, no, this is something I really enjoyed, and I thought more people should know about. It would be interesting to pick your brains on why you made it in the first place. Hopefully it hasn't been too intense or
No, it's
made you question why you pick up instruments every day.
No, it's been great. Really, really good.
Yeah, really nice.
In that case, we shall encourage people to be cathartic and make music and art and all those things, because it does tend to help.
For sure.
The sounds of it.
And it's cheaper than therapy. So
on occasion, yeah.
On occasion.
Paint is expensive.
That's true.
I guess instruments are a one-off.
They're a one-off. Once you've done that, you're okay. Unless you decide that you then need to get Logic and get other people to play on your music, and then you need to pay to distribute it. Then you need to pay to get to gigs, and then you're like, this is not good. If you're just doing it at home.
Not worth being an artist at this point. But on that note,
could or could not be cheaper than therapy.
Depending on how much therapy you need. On that note, we'll talk to these guys later. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It just takes a single moment to stop an avalanche. We ignore a single boulder and we miss our chance. Sisyphus, Sisyphus.